A few months ago I did a video looking at Mego's Draculas, and one of these Draculas was based on the 1922 Nosferatu. This film of course being a classic of the German expressionist cinema, and made famous by its disturbing photography and its lead star Max Schreck, who played the eponymous vampire. Despite being made nearly 100 years ago, the film has endured and managed to enthrall each new successive generation with its power and its creepiness, and most surprisingly, merchandising. In the early 2000s, toy company Art Asylum teamed up with Aztech Toys to produce a series of classic horror film figures. And by classic, I do of course mean silent cinema. This line included entries such as The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, featuring both Caligari and Cesar the Somnambulist, also Metropolis and even Frankenstein. But the one I want to talk about today is Nosferatu. Now these figures were usually released as a pair, and when you put them together they build up a diorama. In the case of Nosferatu, you had Nosferatu, which made up one side of an insane asylum wall, and on the other side we had Knock Renfield, who was firmly secured within. The packaging of these figures are very nicely done. It is of course a clamshell package, so we can see the figure primarily on display there, but there is also a nice film reel down the side with images of the figure, and the back card art is provided by Alex Ross. At the very base of this film reel, you will notice there is a trading card. This card can be removed and it is essentially an image of the figure in a dramatic pose. Also at the bottom here we can see a little bit of information about some of the key features of this figure and the base. The reverse of the packaging highlights the figures in a bit more detail, but it also highlights the other figures in this wave, which was of course the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari figures. And at the very base of the packaging we can see the two figures put together to create the diorama. You may have also noted that the packaging makes a big deal about the special feature of this figure, which is if you expose the Count Orlok figure to sunlight, it will change colour. Now I think the first thing you'll notice about this figure when you release him from his packaging is that he is in a quite exaggerated pose. This isn't an accurate, screen accurate representation of what we see on screen. It's very exaggerated. Everything is distorted and slightly unrealistic and elongated. I think this is entirely appropriate though, because Nosferatu was a German expressionist film, and I think what Aztech Toys have done here have basically applied the same thinking, the same art form to the action figure. One of the film's central motifs is that of the rat and the idea of pestilence and famine, and the figure, much like in the film, has tried to draw on that in the character of Nosferatu or Count Orlok and give him rat-like features. The figure really makes use of that here. As you can see, they've really distorted his head to be longer and those teeth to be really protruding, and they've given much stronger rat-like appearance than actually happens in the film. But that aside, the likeness is still very strong and the amount of detail is very impressive, and there's an awful lot of texturing here, so you have a really nicely painted, nicely presented figure. Now, the figure is quite limited when it comes to articulation. He can swivel his head from side to side, but that's it. It is just a swivel, it's not a ball joint. He does have ball jointed shoulders though, which are great, so he can get a good range of motion up and backwards there. He does have a single jointed elbow, which bends at 90 degrees, and of course he has a swivel at the wrist there as well, so his hand can rotate all the way around. Now, he does have a swivel at the waist, however mine is firmly locked in place and I could not get him to spin around no matter what I tried. But you can see by this line here that he does indeed have the swivel at the waist there. Mine is just jammed in place. And finally, he has a swivel at each of the top of his thighs as well, just above the knee there, so he can spin his legs round 360 degrees, but given the posture that his legs are in, you're not really going to be able to do very much with this figure. We have to bear in mind that this was a high-end action figure at the time and was incredibly highly detailed, and so therefore, as we saw with a lot of McFarlane toys during this period, the emphasis was on the detailing and not in the terms of articulation. He does come with a base. The main base, of course, is filled with these rats, again carrying that motif there to its furthest possible degree, because there's about 1,000 of them, and one side of the insane asylum wall as well. And as if that wasn't enough, he does come with some accessories, and that is about half a dozen extra loose rats. Again, all very finely painted, all very nicely detailed, and these can be used to scatter around the rest of the diorama or place in Nosferatu's hands if that's what you want. And so here he is, for example, holding one of those rats in the palm of his hand. You could do this with both of them if you wish, or you could just place them wherever you want. And finally, there are a number of different peg holes on the base here, so you can plug Nosferatu in so he stands absolutely firm, because one of the things I would say is that he won't stand independently very well. He's likely to fall over in a lot of different positions you put him in. So he really needs those peg holes. But once he is fully assembled, this is a really striking diorama. And again, it's more of like a mini statuette that you're seeing, really. And it is very effectively done. I think for my own personal taste, I would have liked a more screen-accurate one. However, I do appreciate the artistic direction they chose to go in, and it makes total sense. And I think overall we have a really highly detailed, very effective, very nice-looking display piece. And I think if you had the others in the set, you could put them together, and it would look like a really nice collection. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as I will be posting more videos soon.